When my mother's words cut through the air, I felt my heart shatter in front of everyone. I sat at the dinner table, my hands trembling as I passed plates of food. The warm smells of jollof rice and grilled chicken didn't reach me. All I heard were my parents' voices, full of pride for Amaya, full of sharpness toward me. My father laughed, a low, cruel sound. "At least you're useful for something," he said, looking at me like I was nothing more than a servant in my own home. My cheeks burned, my chest felt tight, but I said nothing. I kept serving, moving carefully so no one could see the storm growing inside me. Then my mother's words fell like cold steel. "Your sister deserves more, Sira. She deserves all that you cannot give." The laughter at the table froze for a second. I forced my smile to stay, but inside I felt poisoned. Amaya sat there, glowing as always, her smile small but satisfied, clearly enjoying their praise. The way they compared our lives, our marriages, our worth, it was unbearable. They painted her life with Jalu as a perfect picture, flawless and untouchable, while I was invisible, a shadow in my own home. I wanted to speak, to shout, to tell them they were wrong, but the words caught in my throat. I stayed quiet, nodding politely as they continued their comparisons. Every compliment for Amaya, every little jab at me, felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I felt small, unworthy, but something inside me shifted. My silence was heavy, yes, but it was not surrender. I was watching, learning, feeling the weight of every word, storing it. I realized that their praise for Amaya and Jalu, their blind love for them, came from a place of ignorance. They didn't know the truth behind their shiny smiles. I saw the way Jalu's hand rested on Amaya's, the way he leaned in to whisper something she laughed at nervously. I noticed the fleeting glances, the small tensions they didn't see. My heart ached for Amaya, even as my parents ignored the cracks. Could see. That night, as I cleared the dishes in silence, a plan began to form inside me. My quiet was not weakness. My quiet was the beginning of a storm, a fire I would let grow until it burned away the lies. They thought they were celebrating happiness, but I knew something they didn't, and I would wait, I would watch, and I would act. By the time dessert came, I had made a decision. I would protect my sister, even if no one else could see the truth. I would gather every secret, every hidden word, every piece of evidence that could shatter the perfect image my parents adored. That night, the dinner ended, but my story was only beginning. I was small in their eyes, invisible and weak, but inside I had started a fire that nothing could stop. The man they claimed was perfect was the one who whispered to me in the dark. I could still feel the chill of that night when Jalu had lingered in the kitchen, pretending to search for a snack, but his eyes never left mine. His voice was soft, almost teasing, but every word cut deeper than a knife. "If only I had met you first," he murmured, and my blood ran cold. At first, I thought it was a joke, some careless flirtation that would vanish by morning, but the way he looked at me, the small, lingering touches that seemed accidental, told a different story. After that night, the messages started. Short notes on my phone, always when no one was around. "You understand me better than anyone," he would write. Or, "Amaya doesn't need to know." Each message made my stomach twist, but I never replied. I kept them hidden, locked away, because I knew the truth would destroy my sister, and I could not bear to see her hurt. I carried the secret like a heavy stone, feeling its weight grow heavier every day. At family gatherings, everyone adored Jalu. They laughed at his jokes, praised his success, and my parents always looked at him like he was some kind of hero. No one noticed the tension in his eyes when he passed me by, no one heard the hushed words he shared with me when he thought no one was listening. I had to stay calm, stay quiet, even when my heart screamed for me to act. I had to protect Amaya from the very man she trusted most. The hardest part was watching my parents gush over him. They saw only the charming, smiling husband. They did not see the way he lingered too long near me, the way he would glance around to make sure no one else was watching before sending a message that should never exist. I realized that their perfect picture was just that, a picture. Behind it, there were cracks, shadows, and secrets that no one could see except me. Every time I saw him near Amaya, I felt a mix of anger, fear, and sadness. I hated that he could betray her so easily, yet I also hated that I could not tell her. I stayed quiet, swallowing my anger, recording every detail in my mind. I became invisible, unnoticed, just a shadow, all while carrying the truth that would one day shatter the lies everyone believed. And so I waited. I watched, I listened, and I endured. I knew the moment would come when silence would no longer be enough. Jalu's whispers in the dark had opened my eyes to the danger my sister could not see, and I promised myself that one day, she would know the truth. Until then I stayed quiet, holding the secret like a hidden fire, waiting for the right moment to let it burn. Silence doesn't protect you. It only delays the fire that will eventually burn everything down. I had learned that lesson the hard way. For months, I endured humiliation after humiliation. Every family gathering was a stage where my parents performed their cruel comparisons, praising Amaya as the golden daughter while I was the shadow in her light. "Look at your sister, Sira," my mother would say with a fake smile. "She has everything you can only dream of." My father would nod, adding, "At least she chose the right husband." Each word sank deep into my chest, but I forced a calm smile, nodding politely, swallowing the ache that threatened to spill out. All the while, I carried a secret that could destroy the perfect image everyone worshipped. Jalu's late-night messages, his hidden calls, the whispered confessions in the dark. I kept them hidden, locked in my phone and in my memory. The weight was unbearable. I felt like I was carrying a stone in my chest, one that grew heavier with every passing day. The secret was mine alone, and every smile I forced at family dinners, every polite nod made it harder to breathe. I told myself I was protecting Amaya, that keeping quiet was a way of showing care. But silence came with a price I hadn't expected. Jalu grew bolder. He stopped pretending, stopped hiding his arrogance. In hushed tones, when he thought no one was around, he boasted to me about the women he flirted with, the lies he told Amaya, and how she would never leave him because she needs me to shine. Each confession made my stomach twist, my blood boil, but I could not speak. My quiet had become his playground, and I was trapped in it, helpless in front of my own conscience. The more I stayed silent, the more reckless he became, and the more my parents praised him without seeing the truth. Every insult I endured, every comparison to Amaya, felt like a cruel joke from fate. I realized then that my silence was no longer protection for anyone. It was not kindness, not loyalty, not courage. It had become complicity. By hiding the truth, I was letting the lies grow, letting the betrayal continue, letting my sister suffer without even knowing. I remembered the nights I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every word, every message, every glance. The fire inside me started to grow, burning hotter with every moment I stayed quiet. I could not stay silent any longer. Protecting Amaya meant more than suffering through my parents' insults, more than pretending to be invisible. I had to act, to take the weight off my chest and expose the truth before the fire I had carried in silence consumed everything I loved. That night I made a decision. I would gather every secret, every proof, every hidden confession. I would no longer be the silent observer, the quiet daughter, the shadow behind Amaya's light. Silence had cost too much already. Now it was time for the truth to speak. And when it did, nothing would ever be the same. Sometimes the truth doesn't knock. It scratches, claws, and screams until you can't ignore it anymore. I started noticing the changes in Amaya slowly at first. Her glow, the bright, confident way she carried herself, began to fade. She wore longer sleeves, hiding her arms as if she wanted to disappear from the world. Her laughter, once loud and effortless, became quieter, more forced. Even her eyes avoided me sometimes, flicking away when she thought I wasn't looking. The world still praised her marriage, still admired Jalu as the perfect husband, but I could see the cracks beneath the surface, the shadows they refused to notice. One night, during dinner, Amaya excused herself early, rubbing her eyes and claiming it was allergies. I watched her leave the room, heart tightening with worry. Something felt wrong. I couldn't just let it go. Quietly, I followed her, careful not to make a sound. The moment I saw her in the dimly lit hallway, I froze. Bruises marred her arms, purple and yellow like sick warnings. My blood ran cold. My sister, my bright and shining sister, was hurting in silence. And worse, she was hiding it from everyone, even from the parents who adored Jalu blindly. She turned when she heard me, and her eyes filled with a mix of shame and fear. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Don't tell Mama. They'll say I failed." My chest tightened. Failed? She had done nothing wrong. The man my parents worshipped, the man they called perfect, was not just unfaithful. He was cruel. He had been hiding the darkness behind his smile. And now I could see the truth that no one else would. I wanted, yell, to run and tell our parents, but I knew the world would never see what I saw. They would defend him, excuse him, blame Amaya. I had to be careful. I stepped closer and held her hands, feeling her trembling. I'm here, Amaya. You don't have to face this alone, I whispered. Her tears fell freely then, and I realized how long she had been carrying this alone, smiling in front of everyone while hiding her pain. That night I couldn't sleep. I replayed every dinner, every smile, every praise of Jalu in my mind. I remembered the whispers, the messages, the small moments he had tried to hide in plain sight. The truth was no longer just a suspicion. It screamed at me in bruises and tears, demanding I see it, demanding I act. My parents' idol, the perfect husband, was a mask, and behind it lay cruelty and betrayal. I made a silent promise to myself and to Amaya. I would not let her suffer in silence. I would gather the truth, every secret Jalu tried to hide, and I would protect her. No one else would see, no one else would understand, but I would. The cracks I had seen before were only the beginning. The storm had arrived, and I would be ready. There comes a moment when fear breaks, and in its place grows fire. That night I stared at my reflection, my eyes tired from weeks of worry and sleepless nights. The words my mother had said months ago echoed in my mind, sharper than ever. Your sister deserves more. For the first time I understood them, not the way my parents meant, not gifts or praise or admiration, but in the way that truly mattered. Amaya deserved more than this life of fear, more than a husband who betrayed her and parents who couldn't see. She deserved the truth. She deserved freedom. I remembered all the nights I had hidden messages from Jalu, all the voice notes he left that whispered lies and temptations, all the pictures of him with other women that he thought no one would ever see. For years I carried the weight of his secrets like stones in my chest, a burden that made me feel small and powerless. Every family gathering, every smile I forced, every insult I swallowed, I did it all to protect Amaya. But protection had its limits. It was not enough anymore. That night, the fire inside me finally grew strong enough to push the fear aside. I would no longer watch from the shadows. I would not let him continue to destroy my sister while pretending to be the perfect husband. I took out my phone and went through every message, every image, every note I had kept hidden. The evidence was overwhelming, damning, and powerful. I felt a strange mix of anger and relief. For years I had waited, silently collecting proof, and now the moment had come when I could finally act. I thought of Amaya's bruised arms, her quiet tears, the way she had smiled through her pain so no one would suspect anything. I thought of her forced laughter at family dinners, the way our parents compared me to her while praising Jalu. I knew she would never forgive herself if she had to face this alone. I had to be her shield and her voice. The truth would be our weapon, and I would use it carefully, precisely, with no mercy for the lies that had trapped her. As I packed every file, every photo, every secret into a folder, I felt a power I had never known before. The fear that had controlled me for months, the doubt that had whispered that I was too small, too weak, too invisible, it was gone. In its place was fire, a fire to fight for my sister, to right the wrongs that had been hidden under smiles and family praise. I knew the path ahead would not be easy, that the storm I was about to unleash could shake our entire family, but I no longer cared. Enough was enough. By the time dawn crept through my window, I had made my decision. I would protect Amaya with every ounce of strength I had. I would expose the truth no matter the cost. The burden of secrets was heavy, but now it was also our weapon. For the first time I felt ready. The fire inside me was unstoppable, and I knew nothing would ever be the same. The night I chose to speak, the house was filled with laughter, but I carried a storm in my hands. The dining room was bright with chandeliers, the smell of spicy jollof and fried chicken filling every corner. Relatives laughed, glasses clinked, and my parents beamed as if the night belonged entirely to Amaya and Jalu. I sat at the far end of the table, my hands folded neatly in my lap, my heart pounding so loudly I feared they might hear it. My plain dress felt heavy under their eyes, while Amaya sparkled in gold bracelets and diamond earrings. My parents' whispers and smiles were sharp knives. My mother leaned slightly toward my father and said, "Look at her, Sira. Your sister has everything you cannot give." My father's smirk followed. "Sira, why don't you learn from your sister? Her husband is the kind every woman dreams of." Each word twisted inside me, tightening my chest. Their praise for Amaya was hollow, blind, and cruelly unfair, and every smile I forced only made the anger grow hotter inside me. Jalu raised his glass, kissing Amaya's hand with that perfect, charming smile that everyone adored. The room erupted in applause. I could see Amaya's lips curve in a polite smile, hiding something I had already witnessed. Every laugh, every compliment for him, every proud glance from our parents was a lie, a mask hiding what I had seen in the shadows. That night, the weight of all those hidden secrets felt heavier than ever. I could no longer watch quietly. I took a deep breath, my fingers curling around my phone and the folder of proof I had carried for months. This was the moment I had prepared for. The night I could no longer let lies rule our lives. I stood slowly, my legs trembling but my spine straight. The room fell slightly quiet, the relatives sensing the change in energy. My voice was trembling at first, sharp and determined as it cut through the laughter. Do you want to see the man you worship? Let me show you. Heads turned. The chatter faded. Jalu's smile faltered. My parents' confident smirks froze into shock. I felt the storm inside me ready to explode, the fire I had nurtured for so long finally coming to life. I carried every betrayal, every hidden whisper, every cruel secret in my hands, and now it was time to reveal them. The room that had celebrated lies, that had adored false perfection, was about to witness the truth. And I would make sure that everyone understood what it really meant to call someone perfect. The laughter died, replaced by stunned silence. My heart raced, not with fear but with power. For years I had been invisible, belittled, ignored, but tonight, I held the power to change everything. Tonight, no one would look at Amaya or Jalu the same way again. Tonight, the storm I carried would break, and the truth would finally have its voice. When I pressed play, silence fell, the kind of silence that screams louder than thunder. The laughter, the chatter, the clinking of glasses all vanished as Jalu's voice filled the room. Amaya will never leave. She's too weak. You're the one I want. His words were smooth, almost casual, but every sentence hit like a hammer. I watched as the color drained from my sister's face, her hands trembling in her lap. The relatives froze, eyes wide, unsure of what they were hearing. I didn't stop there. One by one, I played every voice message he had sent, every late-night confession, every admission of lies. Each one landed like a brick in the walls of their perfect image. Gasps echoed, whispered questions floated in the air, and I could see the shock settle on my parents' faces. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father's jaw tightened as he stared at me, unable to believe what he was hearing. The man they had worshipped, the perfect husband, was unmasked in the harshest way possible. Then came the pictures. I held up my phone, scrolling slowly so everyone could see. Jalu in hotels with women who weren't his wife, smiling and careless, confident no one would ever find out. The room turned into a battlefield of whispers, disbelief, and broken illusions. Relatives shifted uncomfortably, unsure where to look, who to believe. The golden son-in-law they had praised so highly was gone, replaced by a man of betrayal and lies. Amaya's tears started quietly, but soon they fell freely. She didn't speak, didn't argue, didn't defend him. Her eyes were fixed on me, and I could see the relief mixed with heartbreak. I had promised her truth and now she had it. I reached out, holding her hand across the table, silently letting her know she wasn't alone. The shock in the room was thick, and I could feel it pressing against every wall. Jalu tried to speak, stammering, raising his hands, but no one listened. The evidence was undeniable, and every attempt to lie was swallowed by the weight of what they had just seen and heard. My parents, who had always compared me to Amaya, who had told me I could never match her, were speechless. Their golden son-in-law, the perfect man in their eyes, had been destroyed in one brutal moment. I felt a strange calm wash over me. The storm I had carried, the fire I had nurtured in silence, was finally unleashed. The room once filled with laughter and lies was now filled with truth and shock. The balance had shifted. The worship of perfection had ended. And in that silence I knew everything had changed. My sister's freedom, her peace, and the truth she deserved were finally here, and nothing could take them away. A throne built on lies doesn't fall slowly. It shatters in one brutal crash. Jalu's face turned red as he tried to defend himself, shouting that I was jealous, that I wanted to destroy him, that none of it was true. His voice shook, but the words were hollow. Every message, every photo, every confession I had played and shown left no room for excuses. The evidence was undeniable, and the room seemed to close. And around him, relatives who had once praised him, who had admired his charm and success, shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, some whispered to each other, and a few shook their heads in disbelief. The man they had called perfect, the man they had toasted and praised at every family gathering, was no longer untouchable. His confidence crumbled with each glance of shock and betrayal. Amaya stood frozen, her hands trembling slightly, clutching my hand for support. Her face was pale, her lips parted, and for the first time in months, I saw the real fear that had been hidden behind her forced smiles. She didn't need me to explain anything. She had lived it. She had seen it. And now the truth was undeniable, laid bare for everyone to witness. My parents, who had spent years mocking me, telling me I was less, stared at me like they were seeing me for the first time. Their eyes widened, mouths slightly open, and all the confidence and pride they had shown in Jalu vanished in an instant. The golden son-in-law they had adored, the perfect man in their eyes, was exposed as a liar and a cheat. Their world, built on illusions and admiration, began to crack around them. Jalu's mask was gone. The arrogance, the charm, the carefully built image of the perfect husband. It all shattered in one night. He looked around the room desperate, trying to find an ally, but there was none. The whispers, the gasps, the shocked faces were all he could see. His reputation, once untouchable, lay in pieces at his feet. The control he had thought he had over the house, over Amaya, over our parents, had vanished completely. I felt a strange mix of relief and satisfaction. The storm I had carried in silence, the fire I had nurtured for months, had finally burned away the lies. The house, once filled with laughter and false admiration, was now heavy with truth, silence, and broken illusions. Jalu's fall was complete, and there was no recovery, no quick fix, no pretending. He had been exposed in the harshest, most public way possible, and everyone saw it. That night, the king who had ruled our family's admiration fell without warning. His throne, built on deceit and false charm, was gone, and in its place stood truth, justice, and the courage of a sister who refused to let lies destroy her family any longer. The house had changed forever, and Jalu would never regain the power he once held. When truth is laid bare, you can either run from it or rise through it. That night, Amaya wept quietly, her body trembling as if the weight of the past months had been pressing down on her all at once. Her perfect image, the marriage everyone had praised, the smiles she had forced at family gatherings, it all crumbled in front of her eyes. I sat beside her, holding her hand tightly, feeling the warmth of her tears soak into my palm. "You deserve more than this, Amaya. You deserve peace," I whispered, my voice soft but certain. For so long she had tried to keep everything together. She had smiled when our parents compared me to her, laughed at Jalu's charm when she knew the truth, and hid her pain so no one would suspect a thing. But now the lies had fallen away, and she finally faced reality. I could see the fear in her eyes, the hesitation as she wondered if she could leave the life she had built, even if it had been built on lies. Her first reaction was silence, a long pause where her tears kept falling and her chest heaved with quiet sobs. She didn't argue, she didn't try to defend him, she didn't even look at our parents. She just sat there, taking in the truth that had been hidden for too long. And slowly, her body relaxed against mine, a sign that she was no longer fighting the reality but starting to accept it. "I can't stay there anymore," she whispered finally, her voice barely audible. "I can't pretend that everything is fine." And in that moment I knew she had made her choice. She had chosen herself, not Jalu, not the marriage, not the image that our parents had forced her to protect. She had chosen to rise through the pain, to leave behind the lies, to reclaim the life that was hers to live. I squeezed her hand, letting her know she wasn't alone, that no matter what she decided, I would be there. She nodded slowly, tears still falling, but the fear in her eyes was replaced by a quiet determination. The chain of false praise, the weight of pretending, the fear of judgment, all of it could not hold her any longer. She had decided that her life, her peace, and her happiness mattered more than appearances or approval. That night, she stood up inside her own mind and heart. The tears and trembling would fade, but the courage she felt in that moment would stay with her forever. For the first time, Amaya was free to choose herself, free to leave the life of lies, and free to step into a world where she could finally breathe, laugh, and live without fear. She had faced the truth and she had risen. Nothing would ever be the same again. I wasn't the perfect daughter. I never had been. I had smiled through insults, nodded through comparisons, and carried the weight of secrets no one else could see. But that night I was the brave one. I spoke when everyone else stayed silent. I held the truth in my hands and refused to let lies continue to destroy the people I loved. Days after that night, the house felt different. The usual chatter and laughter of relatives were replaced with uneasy glances and whispered conversations. My parents sat in silence, their pride bruised, their illusions shattered. They still struggled to accept what had happened, still tried to defend the man they once called perfect. But the weight of truth was heavier than denial, and even they could not escape it. For the first time, no one compared me to Amaya. No one whispered that I was less, that I could never measure up. My silence had been mistaken for weakness for years, but now my voice carried power. I had revealed what needed to be seen. I had protected my sister, exposed the lies, and shattered the perfect image that had trapped us all. That courage, not their praise, became my worth. Even though their words would always sting, I finally understood something that had taken me years to learn. Worth isn't measured by marriage, by gifts, or by appearances. It isn't measured by approval or by who seems perfect in the eyes of others. Worth is measured by courage. It is measured by the strength to protect those you love, even when it costs you everything you thought you had. I watched Amaya rebuild herself slowly, freed from lies and fear, and I realized that what I had done mattered more than I had imagined. She could finally breathe, smile without worry, and live her life on her terms. And I had found my own strength, the kind that no insult or comparison could take away. The house still held whispers and uneasy glances, but I no longer felt small or invisible. I had spoken. I had acted. And that night, when the truth was finally laid bare, I discovered the power of standing up, even when it is the hardest thing to do. I wasn't the perfect daughter, but I had been the brave one. That courage, that voice, that fire inside me, it was my real value, and no one could ever take it away. For the first time, I could look in the mirror and see myself clearly. Not a shadow of comparisons, not the quiet sister left behind, but someone who had chosen truth, courage, and love over silence, fear, and appearances. That night changed everything. It gave me and Amaya freedom. It broke the chains of lies, and it proved that bravery can transform even the most broken family into a place where truth finally matters. If you found yourself holding your breath with every secret revealed, don't keep this story to yourself. Share it with someone who needs a reminder that courage and truth always win. Comment below. If you were in Sarah's place, would you have stayed silent or spoken up? Hit like, share.